I will call the study session of the Lincoln Park City Mayor and Council of 11/28/2018 to order. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could have roll call, please.
Councilpersons Breeding. Present. Higgins.
Here.
Kelsey.
Here.
Parkinson.
Here.
Ross. Here. Salcido.
Here.
And Mayor Carnes.
Here. Well, good evening, everyone. This is the study session that is called for specifically to discuss with landlords in the city, discuss the rental registration and inspection program. This is a couple guidelines as we begin. We're going to want to hear from everyone, but we need current information, not information that dates back 3-4 years. This is all stuff that is currently ongoing so that we can get the process done. Complaints that occurred 5 years ago will not have reference on that. So that's what I'm asking. And but everyone will get an opportunity to speak, and we'll get through that. But first things first, I think we're going to start off with our building official, Mr. Myers. John?
My name is John Myers. I work for the City of Lincoln Park as the building official and supervisor for all the building responsibilities in the city. And I wanted to welcome you as landlords and guests. To my right is the director for Mckenna, who is the contractor that the city has hired as a third-party contractor. Their contracting responsibility for the city is to be responsible for administrative office work, rental property, I mean not just rentals, but all the inspections required in the city, and then plan reviews. And so that's their overviewing responsibility. So he's here to speak on behalf of Mckenna and the team that he's put together here in the city of Lincoln Park. And as we go through some of the conversations, you'll get to meet him in just a minute. I'm glad you're here. Mayor and Council, we're glad you've allowed us to have this meeting. This, we hope, is the beginning of a new start of how we can address one of the largest financial fluxes of life and health safety in our city from this day forward. And so tonight we may be able to get a launch to tell you what we've done, where we've been, and where we're heading, so that both landlords and council have an understanding. And I'm just putting it in my mind to your ears that you're looking for consistency and predictability, and you're looking for protocol and procedures that give us consistency and predictability, realizing that both of you have a similar coin to address, but a different side of that coin. And so we hope that we can give you some insights. You can share some of your concerns. Again, my recommendation tonight is not, we don't have near enough time. If you have a personal direct complaint about a property, we're asking you to submit that to me in writing, and we'll address it directly, or you can give me a phone call, or you can give me an email. But if this is about an individual case, you can give us the issues, because if it happens to you a number of times, that's what we're asking you to do. But if everybody says, I have a complaint about my curb sidewalk issue, we'll be here all night. So if that's the case, leave that for the building department to address in the proper protocol and procedure, so that we can handle your case personally and efficiently on a business day. But this is a place for us to begin the process of letting the council know what we're doing and how we're answering your questions, and how you get to know how we're responding to your issues. And you realize that, to give you a rough idea, right now the city of Lincoln Park is registering anywhere between 230 and 265 registrations of rentals every month. And so if you think of that process times 12, that's the present action level of rental inspections that we're processing in the city. There is projected numbers, which we don't even have all the facts to back up, but the projection numbers are there could be anywhere from 16 to as much as 2,100 other residential properties that are still hidden and chosen not to register, and they are rental properties. Our concern, my concern, being hired by the city when they brought Mckenna on to be the building official, my concern is life, health, safety. We came in and I was invited to be a part of the city. The first issue was over the next 3 years is to really sit down and get serious about life, health, safety. How do we bring the safety of all residential and business properties to a place where is Bob in the room? Oh, yeah, he's stuck in the corner. So we don't have to use the fire department as often because our structures are maintained in such a manner that our fire departments aren't in as high of demand because we've managed ourselves in how we do it. And so we have that much on a monthly basis plus all the follow-ups. Now you have to realize that we may have to be finding maybe 1,600 other residents that have just chosen not to register because they don't want the city in their business. But we think it's important for your neighbors to be registered as much as we think you're important to be registered so that the quality of housing, the quality of the value of property not only stays up but goes up. And to do that, the conditions of your house mean everything to the value of the city of Lincoln Park. So that's what I agreed to come in and do for the next 3 years, is take a look at life, health, and safety of our residential properties. I'm assuming as I look through the audience, and I know a number of you, most of you, have probably called me, complained, or talked to me about something or other. I see everything from residential property owners to multi-complex property owners, where you own units that hold more than 3 residential properties in one building. So we're glad you're here. All of you have different perspectives to address the city, and we're glad you're here to hear what we have to say and then share some of the insights that you can help us in the future. All right? So what I'd like to do is turn this over to Ralph and let him introduce his staff and what his protocols and his procedures are. And then from that, we'll stop and ask questions and proceed through the inquiry. All right? Ralph.
Thanks, John. Yeah, my name is Ralph Welton, and I'm the project manager for Mckenna. And I'm also a landlord, not in this city, but I am. And so a lot of the complaints that we hear, are complaints that I've had against the cities that I've worked with. And so what we're trying to do here, John and I, are put together or improve upon the processes and procedures that we use in this program. We want them to be equitable. We want them to be consistent so that you understand what's going to be happening when we come out there. And we want the inspection process itself to be as close to universal as possible. And so all these elements, some of them involve processes which we're working on, some of them involve technology which we're working on and which we're putting in place right now. And then some of them involve the human factor, and that's maybe the hardest to address, and that's maybe what we've worked the hardest to address. And so what that means is a lot of times when you're calling about the inspector himself and the way he's calling things up, the way he's treated you, the way he won't answer your calls. And so these are the things that I address quickly. And so in the almost year that we've been here now, we've been working that whole process thing out. We've been working to get the technology moving so that everything is standardized, so that there's nobody being treated any differently than anybody else when it comes to re-registering or the length of time involved between inspections and all this, so that everybody can feel like they're being treated just like everybody else. And that's what we're after, and that's what I'm after where I have my properties. But we have this manpower deal, and we've been working on that too. And so I would say that in this time since January, I guess, we've managed to put together a pretty good crew now. We've gone through some that we didn't think were working. I got them out of here. And it doesn't mean that they were necessarily bad inspectors, but every community, in my experience as a building official and with Mckenna, every city's rental stock is different. And they require us to look at them differently. And they require us to work with the landlords in a different way. And so some guys just could not, they couldn't make that change. They couldn't pass that learning curve, and they're gone. And I think that we have, 2.5 guys basically doing rentals right now. And they're pretty solid, and I've seen the complaints tailing off concerning the types of inspections and what's being called up poorly. And quite frankly, I get involved myself quite a bit. If you call and you can't get your questions resolved through the inspector, it comes to me before it goes to John. A lot of you have had me on your site, and I think pretty much all the time we come up with some kind of a middle ground where we're able to keep you rolling and still get the health and safety issues put together so that your tenants are safe and your liability is down. And that's what we're after. We're after to protect your liability, your tenants, the city's liability, and in this case, Mckenna's liability. And so that's what we're working on. You know, and John can discuss the technology part of it a little bit later because he's been more involved in the BSNA program than I have, but I've been involved in it in other cities. And so we're both, you know, we meet a lot, we talk a lot, we're trying to get these things to work in a smooth way, and there's a few rough bumps, but basically we think it's coming together. And we're also finding ways of searching for these other rental properties that aren't being registered. And some of them are causing blight issues in your neighborhood. Some of them are causing safety issues for their tenants. Their tenants don't realize that they're not registered. All they know is they rented this house. And we think that it behooves these landlords to get with the protocol and get these properties rented and do the honest and the legal thing just like you guys are doing. And so that's what we're trying to do, and we think we're at a stage right now where it would be really great for our growth in this process thing to get input. And we're seeing over and over a lot of your complaints are, you might think that they're particular to you and your house or your houses, but they're not. They're pretty universal. They're pretty universal complaints. And so we're trying to approach those complaints in the macro way, where we're trying to change the policies that we need to change to make sure that you don't have to go through that every time we come out to your house. So, John, did you want to talk a little bit about the technology before we open it up? Okay.
Well, I would like to, so that we're aware, so that we can get through the process of what it actually is, from, you know, the re-registrations, inspections, so we know what to expect, and they know what to expect also.
Yeah, you're right. We're going to approach that.
Go ahead and get that first.
Okay, so the re-registrations, and really this process might even be open to some input too, but the way it stands right now is a month before your registration ends each cycle, you get notified by letter to get registered within that next month. And then after that first 30 days, you get a second letter. And then after the next so many days, you start getting uglier letters. and that's the way that the ordinance is pretty much written. But what we're thinking is maybe backing it up so that we're sending those letters out 2 months before the registration ends to give you more time, because we have a real problem with that space of time when technically you're not registered, but you're working towards getting re-registered. And what would happen if there was an issue with your tenant or with you that took us into a court, and what would the court have to say about that sort of thing? And so we're working to kind of smooth that bump out so that you're consistently registered. You know, as long as you're getting your inspections and everything's being done in somewhat of a timely manner. And so that is how the re-registrations go. The registrations we find, the people we find that have never been registered, but they've been renting out for who knows how long, according to what I understand from John and from our admin staff, is there's a fine for them when they're caught, plus the regular fees. Because who doesn't know about the registration policy? Maybe people who just got into the city, or maybe people who are just moving out of the city, but they want to rent their home out now. And we work through with them to bring them up to speed on that quickly. But the professional slackers who are out there year after year renting their houses out and not getting them inspected, not getting them certified, are the ones who, at least hopefully, are the ones getting the fines. Now, sometimes we've been finding out that there's like robo letters in the system. The system, BS&A system's capable of doing a million things, but it needs somebody at the helm who knows what it's doing. And so we've noticed that we're getting complaints about letters going out with fines on them, which should not have had fines. And we hear about that really quick. And then we try to jump on that really quick. And I think anybody who's contacted us about things like that will tell you that, you know, I don't like holding people's feet to the fire like that. You know, I feel that my job is to make your property safe, to make your neighborhoods better. I mean, you should be able to drive down these streets and not know a rental from a homeowner occupied. You know, I mean, these homes should be, you know, they should be, in Lincoln Park, you guys got one of the highest rental quotas, you know, of any city I've ever worked in, except Ann Arbor, where there were 50,000 rentals in Ann Arbor, literally. But I mean, you know, about 50% almost of your house stock is rental. And so it behooves all of us to keep those up. It behooves all of us to keep those neighborhoods up. Curb appeal for potential buyers, homeowners that are sandwiched in between rentals. You know, we get complaints like that a lot. And so we work really hard to try to catch these guys who aren't registering with us. And the road's a little more rocky for them when we do. So that's basically the registration process. After the first inspection, John and I have been talking about timeframes for getting the repairs done after an inspection. And it's almost, it doesn't make any sense to us to put a 10-day, you know, for one thing, in the past at least, the letters have been getting mailed out to you, and by the time you get them, you're down to 2 or 3 days, you know, and so we're working to make that time frame more equitable, and still make sure that real life safety issues are not allowed to sit out there for 2 or 3 months while things are being done. You know, because there's still tenants in the house. They still need working smoke detectors. They still need all the utilities running properly. You know, and I'm sure everybody understands that. And good landlords don't want to see that happening anyway. We all know that. And I'm guessing you wouldn't be one of those good landlords if you weren't here tonight. You know, so we want to make this a partnership. We're working with you. Maybe putting together, John had talked about putting together maybe a quarterly meeting with maybe a committee of you guys, and then we could do fan outs. We got all your emails. If you got emails, we got them because you put them on your registrations. We could do fan outs, letting you know how these meetings are going, or even invite you into them, or just fan outs to let you know when there's changes in ordinances or codes. Our codes are all ICC codes, and they do occasionally change, and the state adopts them, and we have to follow them. And I don't see anything that's happened lately that's been really drastic. And quite often, as long as everything in your house is working as it should, it's grandfathered in. You know, I don't like that term, but it's grandfathered in. The exception being smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, like that. So if John wants to touch on the way we're hoping the technology would change the registration process in a way that smooths it out more, and maybe how it goes into the inspection process. I think then we can just open the floor up to suggestions about what we've been talking about and what you might have in mind for that. And we're hoping that this creates a whole new atmosphere in the city, and that we are able to work with you through emails, through letters, through meetings. I meet with people in the field all the time. John meets with people in the field all the time. And, you know, we really want you to know that we're on your side, that this isn't like a money grab. We're not after your bucks. No, we're not. Well, would you work for free? I got inspectors who won't work for free. So John?
Any questions? Everybody understand the protocol for registration and re-registrations? Pretty simple, set forward. Yes, sir. Can you announce who you are, please?
Larry Otis, resident of Lincoln Park here. I've had rental since 1979. He says something about the fines, it's about 30 days after or when does the fine start?
Hold on a second, sir, please.
Let me take two.
This is being recorded, so for the sake of people watching it later on,
Okay.
and they may be watching at home so that everybody can hear you.
Okay. Just a question about the fines that he didn't elaborate on. What are the fines after the letters go out? I don't know how many times past the due date you send the letters out. And what will be the fine after 30 days, 20 days, 10 days? Will it be doubled? Will it be a percentage? I'm just looking at what the cost was for that.
The process starts very simple. We ask you to register. We'll send a courtesy letter out. You have 30 days to get that registry and pay that registration fee. 30 days to do that. If that's not done, by the end of that 30 days, a second letter goes out and says, this is your final notice. Your 30 days are up. You've expired your time to get registered. That second letter goes out as a final notice. If within the next 15 days we hear no response from you, because it'll tell you you've got 10 days to do this, then there's a letter sent out that says your fee now is $300 for registration, and now we've added $100 to you because you haven't registered. That's where that 100 will start at that point. The second place it will happen is if you've got your registration in place, you've paid your $300, you've scheduled a rental, an initial inspection, and then you've got the violation list, and you have 30 days to get that process done. And actually what the letter actually says is 10 days for life and safety. And then because the ordinance is really quite gray, the ordinance isn't gray in my opinion, it says you've got 10 days to get everything done. Well, I can't do it. You probably can't do it. Now in this day and age when you have to have more licensed contractors doing something, to get one in 10 days is not possible at all. So we trust that somewhere down the road we'll change that ordinance to a more rational piece. Until then, we have 10 days for life and safety. Those are such things like smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, and gas issues that are inside your house that are not safe for someone. Those we're asking you to do in 10 days. Then you have the 30. Say you get your registration, your application, you've got your violation list, and then we don't hear from you in 30 days. We don't hear from you in 40 days. By the time we see that 30 day comes back into our computer, we're going to send you a ticket or a penalty that you didn't do anything. You didn't call for a reinspection. You didn't say, can I have an extension? You didn't do any action. We're going to send something that says, by the way, there's a $100 fine because you haven't acted on your responsibility. Hopefully that stirs the pot. If it doesn't, it comes to one person, the building official, and he sends in about 2 to 3 months later, and they go, hey, we haven't been able to get this guy to apply, finish his reinspection. He hasn't called, he hasn't pulled any permits. What do we do? They're going to send it to me. They're going to say, please consider writing him a civil infraction. The civil infraction in the city of Lincoln Park, the first civil infraction for the building department, is now fee scheduled at $500. We go and we have an informal hearing more than likely. And at that informal hearing, we're with usually the assistant district attorney of the city, and we sit between the three of us and we discuss what's taking such a long time getting you through the process. If we can come to a mutual agreement on that date and you have a deadline to hit certain markers, then we'll hold that ticket at bay until we see that you honored your word. If you do, we dismiss the ticket and off you go and finish your project. If you don't, you get cited that ticket. That's how the ticket system situation and fine situation is designed to work at this present moment. Yes, sir. Yes, I get it.
Here, have it, just leave it on that front seat after you're finished.
Yeah, that way you can record it.
How about now?
Right on.
The battery symbol looks like it's dead.
Have him come up to the podium.
Can you?
Well, then walk up to the podium, sir, for the time being. John, let me see that. John.
Let's put a 10-year lithium battery in that.
There you go.
And make sure your tenants don't take it.
That's right.
Protocol for speaking first is identify your name and then go on.
Sure. My name is Matthew Cole. Thanks for hosting this event. Follow up to your comment or, the process. 10 days for safety and health, and then obviously a little wiggle room, 30 days to get some of the other things done. Let's go through that process, right? So if we take care of those health and safety issues, call back for a reinspection, but we're waiting for other items, whether they're exterior and it's the winter, or interior items that take permits and contractors. Are you charging us for a reinspection fee again after we've already had you out for the 10-day safety and health? Because that would be 2 inspections after you've already, done the initial inspection on the property. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. The answers in the past, the answer would have been yes, we probably have. But because we've divided in the last several months this 10-day issue in our ordinance, we don't do that. We won't give you that because that would be rightfully asking you to have 3 inspections and we want you to pay the extra one. So what we don't usually see, though, is someone give us a 10-day notice on life and safety. That's why it doesn't often happen, because usually someone doesn't call and go, oh, this is 6 days in, I'll get you my inspection, you'll see my smoke detectors and my gas issues in place, and then come back again. But what we've done is because of that window, we don't give it that. But otherwise, you're right. Technically, it would look like there'd be another inspection on that. Any other, yes, ma'am.
My name is Margaret Shepard. I live in a city of Lincoln Park and have 3 rentals. My question is, have they corrected the error with the actual notices going out for us to renew our rental inspection? We have 3 homes. We didn't get any notice on 2 of them. And the third one, we got the letter a month after it had already expired saying now it's time to inspect. So has that been, and that's only been this year alone.
No. Next question. Anybody else have another question? And I'd love to say yes, but let me explain from our side of the coin, because you are from the, I'd like to make money on this process of renting property, and I'd like to make amends. Our side of it is there's a lot of paper trail that goes through, and sometimes people don't know that when they have a property and 3 years goes by and they've made 3 changes in their paperwork, maybe they've changed their address, they've changed the telephone number, they've changed their email address, they changed the person who's responsible for the property. Maybe they were used to do it themselves and now they have a maintenance company do it for them. They didn't call the building department or the assessors or the water department and change all that. So that stuff doesn't get processed from our end. So we're struggling at figuring out, how do we tell someone who doesn't talk to us for 3 years that whatever they did in 3 years that changed their lives just lightly, like a new phone had to be picked up. So we don't have your contact number anymore. Or you've gone to a change of address. You've only moved down the street. We don't have those numbers. When that happens, that's why I'm saying probably not. So how do we get that communication from you to go, wow, this is one of those important things. I go to the IRS and I tell them I've changed my jobs and I've changed my location. I go to the DPA, the driver's license station. I get my driver's license changed because I have a new, but I forget to tell the building department because I have 3 rental properties. They won't know where to find me. When we don't do that, that paper trail gets lost. So sometimes that's part of our problem. We have to figure out how to keep those records accurate. I know, I'm just saying, that's one of the major reasons why it doesn't happen. The other major reason would come, and I can't say anything about the people in the past, but if they didn't manage well, let's just say the system that the city council now and the city management has invested in to give us a better technology wasn't here a year and a half or 2 years ago, and they weren't using it. because they were just putting it in software, and they had a sheet of paper, and instead of putting it in the computer, they would scan it in and leave it in a hard drive on the side. If that got lost, so did we lose all the documents. So we want to change that whole system so it's all in one place inside the server of the whole city. So as we change that to be more proficient, we'll be able to change that ability to get to you more consistently. Also in the future, if we're going from snail mail to emails, we'll have much more faster, rapid pace to find out if we missed you or we found you, because it'll kick back and say, this is the wrong email that doesn't exist anymore. And we'll have a better chance of catching you quicker instead of it getting dragged out. So there's 3 areas of why we probably would say no, but we're really working hard to make your lives more effectively successful from our side of the subject. You can, they may not answer you,
Well, I mean, it'll probably be toward you.
because this is their
Well,
study group session.
Yeah, well, I just had an issue that I was just wondering if any changes are going to be made to the rental ordinance at all. I know when it started, it was 5 years. Every 5 years they were going to do it. Then it went to 2. Now it's back to 3. Is there any way that they're going to change? And one other question, just to get it quickly. I know there's certain family members that are exempt from from rental ordinance. I'd like to see if you would consider grandchildren as part of that. I don't know if you had any idea with that. I'd like to bring that up tonight because most of us raise our grandchildren and they become the same as the family. I'm just wondering if you're looking at anything like that.
I can tell you, the city management, as a part of the administrative staff of the city, has granted us the right to begin recommending resolutions that the city council can look at and review and make decisions on. And as we write those with the legal team, we hope that there's insights from things that you've just offered. As we put them together, then we'll submit them to the city council and let them process them and come up with them. I do think there's a number of them from my own point of view that they need to make adjustments on. And as we get to here in the end of this year, 2018, and get into 2019, we hope we have time to submit those resolutions to the council for their review. And as so, I understand that biggest issue. Right now, the city ordinance for rental properties only goes 3 ways. It goes, you own it, your children, your father, or your grandfather. That's it. And so you're asking, can it go one more step down? It goes 2 up. Can it go 1 more down? That's not an unreasonable question to ask the city council to consider in a resolution. And we'll see if we can put that in the next coming months as we resolve that. I think that's a good response. Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible that a moratorium could be put on any action taken on the grandchildren position? Because we're in that position right now, that we're being asked to register the home that our grandson is living in.
It'd be worth us addressing, but it has to go through the council to approve all that before it can change in that kind of an ordinance. We can't do anything until they do that, and they won't do anything until we write it and recommend it to them. All right? Yes.
Yeah, my name's Tom McLeese. Me and my wife live in Wyandotte, and we own a rental property over here. And we got the notice to come in, register, we did all that, paid our fee and all that. And when I came down to the building department, the lady told me that it would be a couple weeks, so we were able to come out, a little behind. And I asked her, I said, well, now, I want to be there when the inspector comes out, because this is all new to me. So, I want to see what's going on. If there's anything to be done, I want everything on the up and up. And we weren't called, number one. So I guess that's a complaint more than a question. But so we weren't called at all. And then it's been over a month since he came out and inspected. And so you were talking about like follow-up letters on, you got this long to fix this. The only thing that was wrong with our property is we got a couple of sidewalk squares that they want to replace. No problem, we'll do that. But, and then I had a question of, well, maybe we'll get a letter. Because in Wyandotte, they have the same thing, but after they come out and put the big orange X's on the squares like you guys do, they sent us another letter a week later saying, we have 5 different avenues we can take as far as getting these fixed. And that's what we were wondering too is, should we get our contractor? Do you have a contractor you recommend? Or what's the protocol for that? So we're kind of in the dark here with everything because we got the one letter, I came down, paid my fee, talked to the lady, haven't heard a word from anybody since. So, you know, we want to get everything on the up and up, but we just didn't know what to do because we're waiting and waiting and waiting to hear from something. And you did mention that you send out follow-up letters, and to be honest with you, it's been almost 2 months for us, and we haven't heard nothing.
Let me answer that in a great question, great response. Give me a minute to answer that, because it's going to move from registration to technology. And let me touch it. So if you have a seat, I'll give you a minute to explain that. And I apologize that nobody has gotten you. The standard operation in the city of Lincoln Park at this point is when you have a registration and you have an initial inspection of your property and you get that notice of what your violations are, we're assuming you're fully responsible to fix them, and when they're fixed, you call me and say, I need you to prove that I got them corrected. That's really yours. But we realize that there are new people coming in and doing registration of rental properties when they've used to doing it in other cities and other states and other places in the world, and they do it different than this city. So when we talk about protocol, what my office wants to really see us do is when you come for a registration form, whether you get it online, which you now can do, you can open up and find that surface on the web page, go to the building department, and it'll say, here's all the documents. You can check down to that document. Hopefully our technology is coming right around the corner that you can now literally go onto that document and go what they call a portal and put your information right in, and then you don't even have to come into the building department to do that. That's where we're going. Right now we have it with all permits and contractors, and we're moving it all the way to rental people. So that means you don't have to save that time. When you open that registration as a rental, we want to now give you two things every time you open that registration when it comes to technology and paper trail. We want to give you a checklist of what you need to do in your responsibility that you're asking for. We want you, if you need someone to be there because of your situation, and you're saying, hey, whenever you set that schedule, I need it to be noted that I need to be there. That'll be part of that information that says you need to tell us that, and that says, hey, we're going to be there in the AM right now or in the PM, 1 o'clock to 4 or 9 to 12. When that's the schedule, you have the right, and you should take the right, the privilege you have, to call that morning and go, it's between 8 and 8:30. I would pick up the phone and go, is there any way you can give that inspector, whoever's coming to my house, give him an opportunity to tell me if he's going to be there between 9:30 and 10:30, 9:30 and 10. When I was inspecting on the field, I could tell you within 10 minutes when I was going to be there because that's what I thought you asked for. Take that privilege, but that document should be in there digitally. When you see your application, you should know you have these options and privileges as somebody who has filed for registration. The third thing you'll get on that document is the application, that checklist of what you want, what is expected of you and what you have to do to complete the process. And then number 3 is you'll see an entire checklist of what our inspectors will be walking through checking on your house. That list will be available to you. Not because you could choose to pick it up if you remember to do so. It will come with your registration. Now, literally at this moment, by my oversight, my supervision of it, the numbers, the code book numbers, the names, the words, exact as it is on this page, is on the inspector's pad. Exactly as it's printed here, is now printed on there. So when you get your report, you should actually be able to see if they suggested on the outside that you have a chimney issue. You're going to read violation is 304.14. Chimney needs repaired, and then they'll write an edit of what's needed repaired on it. And you'll know exactly where they got their rule for your issue, and then you'll know it. You can get that copy before they ever come to your building. You can start looking at that list and go, I wonder what those on my building are already in need of being repaired. You can get a head start even before we walk in the building. Number 2, when we do walk in the building, you should know that's the primary base. Primary. Will there be a clause in the bottom? There might be something that's not on this list. It might be, but if we can't demonstrate where that is by city ordinance or code book by the state law of the IPMC 2015, it shouldn't be on your list. Fair enough? That's the technical end of what we really need to move to give you a fair chance to be successful at registration and rental and compliance in a fair, orderly manner. Okay, does that help? Any questions to that? Right here in the front?
Okay, so my name is Nikki, and my question is kind of related to that in a way, kind of, I think. So I'm a new landlord to Lincoln Park. I have 5 properties now in Lincoln Park just over the last
Should I say
couple-
congratulations at this point?
Kind of, maybe.
Okay.
But through my experience in just the last couple years and actually within the last couple months, so I purchased a house and it came with the C of O. And I called out for my inspection. And when they came out for my inspection, now I know the C of O is only exterior. And I get that because that's for occupied owners. Called out for my rental inspection. They wrote up 9 things exterior. Oh, it was a different inspector. So now we got to do it this way. Because it was a different inspector. He saw things a different way. So now I've got 9 more things on the exterior. I've got a C of O for the outside. But now I've got 9 more things on the outside that I got to repair that wasn't anticipated initially because I already had the C of O. So that's been an issue 5 times now. I've bought 5 houses and it's been an issue 5 times. The other thing was one of the properties that I purchased had an inspection prior to me buying it. When I purchased the home, now this one I knew I had to do some repairs to on the outside and inside. So I called the inspector out right away. Just bought this house, come do the inspection, tell me what I need to fix. They came out, they wrote up their inspection list, but I wasn't aware that there was an inspection done on the house prior to me buying it. So none of that got written up on the list. And then I only received a copy of what the second inspection was, and then got charged a re-inspection fee because the first list wasn't even addressed. Now, I don't know if that pertains to anything, and I hope that that can be fixed with the technology, but I'm 5 houses in, and I've had 5 nightmares.
I'm going to give that to Ralph in a minute because it's...
Before you do, could we have your last name? You get it first, but not the...
Absolutely, it's Venier.
2 things. I can speak to one of them pretty easily, not very comfortably, but easily. And the other one we'll give it to Ralph because that's his crew. Let's put the words in language that I'm familiar with and it might help you. When you buy a property in this city, you need a resale inspection. That means if you're buying it, somebody who's selling it to you has already got an inspection for that resale. They can choose to fix it themselves and then sell it, or they can choose to ask you to take the responsibility of all the exteriors and fix it after you buy it. And you have a window of, I think, 6 months by our ordinance to fix it and get it in compliance to that exterior. So when somebody comes back out for some reason to inspect, which I don't understand why they would inspect the outside again for you. They shouldn't have. That was a violation. That they should not touch it. If you were the buyer, not the seller, we should be only inspecting when it's sold, not when it's being bought, and that on the exterior. So I can't speak to that without looking at your addresses particularly. The other question is valid, and that's to Ralph and his team. They should not be trying to look at one inspection and go, oh, I'm new, but I don't like it. I see other things I'd like to add to it. That annoys most people, and it's not fair for the council to have a building department who continues to add things to your list because someone else is new. And they're not asking, the city council is not asking me to govern it by overloading, by repeating it and adding more. And that really comes to Ralph saying how he handles that when it happens with his team.
Well, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I've handled that in this city already like 4 times. And I know that it still happens. It happens in every city. And it doesn't even mean a guy is new and another guy's not. It just means they have these different mentalities. Some people may have been primarily building inspectors following a residential code, and they can't draw back and remember that this is not a new home that they're inspecting. They're inspecting it like it was a new home. And I've gotten called out on several of those, and I take care of that. But I also take care of the issue so that it doesn't happen again and become a universal problem. But it is one of the hardest things to get right in any city rental inspection corps. No matter where I've worked, we've always had a guy that just went way out of his way to cheese people off. And then we always had a guy that walked around the house and didn't look at anything, and so you always got to work that through. And I hopefully I do by either moving them somewhere else or just putting them on the bench. We don't, because I don't need that. You don't need that.
Why can't we have the same inspector?
Oh, actually, that's one way we're thinking of doing it, but we would have to do something.
Excuse me. We will conduct this meeting in an orderly fashion. There will be no profanity, and everyone will speak in turn. We will listen to everyone, but everyone will speak in turn. If you have a question or comment, you come up and you grab the microphone, and that's how we're going to do this. If it's going to continue in this fashion, we will end this meeting. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. We are working towards something like that, and it would have to involve either having less guys, so that, because then you got guys doing other things and that house comes up and he can't take it that day, so somebody else does. So it could mean dividing the city up into quadrants somehow. It could mean just making sure that when that call comes in for a re-inspect, whoever did the initial one gets it, even if it can't be that moment, that day. I mean, it might be a day or two out, but you would be told about all that. You would be talked to about, could we do it Thursday because he's out tomorrow, like that. You're absolutely right. That would help solve a lot of problems. And I'm hoping to do that by having, now we've had these same three guys constantly, in my opinion, at least in talking to them every week, they seem to think more alike than the guys we had here earlier in the year, who just seem to be competing with each other. And so it's a problem that we understand. And so if we understand it, that means we're working on it. Somebody else had.
So it's Matt Cole again. I actually want to go back to John. You talked a lot about technology and then we got off track. So if we can get back on track. Ralph, I respect that we're trying to, make things not convoluted, and I think everybody's experienced that to some extent. And I think you guys are doing a better job working with us in that aspect. But back to technology. One is, when will the technology be in place to do that online? And I'll pause there, and I have a few more questions.
As I said, for sure, we know the portal system for contractors to pull their own permits is already active. We don't know if the rental property registrations is active. I do know you can go online and pull it off the internet and type it in and fax it or email it to us. We know you can do that.
Okay.
Okay, so that piece can be done, and then all the documents that you need behind it can be done. So even if you needed, from that point, a permit to do, say, a roof job, you don't have to come in. You could go online and tell your contractor, pull the permit off the line, off the building department. He could pull it, have it filled out, send it in an email. He could send it in by portal and be paid without having to come in, because he could do it for himself as a licensed contractor.
But physical registration is still done in office with payment?
At this point, but I know this is part of the process, but you could actually pull it off the line and then email it to us. You wouldn't have to do it online. You could still pay online, the same way, but it's not the same portal system that we're using for contractors yet.
Got it. All right. Then you addressed the inspection windows, and you talked about maybe placing a courtesy call to the office to try to get that window shrunk.
Right.
Suggestion, if we can get to some type of text notification software where the inspector already has our information, they have our email, they have our phone number. If they hit the button, 30-minute window, just like Lowe's, Home Depot, anybody else who delivers anything.
Right. If we can get into that where you can do your own inspection, and that the portal will allow us, once we've field tested it enough, the portal will allow us to let you even register online your own inspection time, and it'll be kind of unique in the sense that says, let's just say I can only afford 24 inspections a day, because that's how many man hours we have to put on inspections. And you call on Sunday night, and you're hoping you get yours Monday, but all of a sudden you don't get it at the Wednesdays, it's because all the 24 times 2 days has already been filled, and you're out all the way out to Wednesday. And you can set that date on that clock and that time. So that's the ambition of the portal system, even for your registration. You can pick the nearest date that you want, put it in yourself, and then know when someone's coming to your house.
Perfect, thank you. Final question is, will you guys allow for inspections on unoccupied homes on lockboxes without anybody being present?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
What we will not do is inspect a house where there's a minor in the house without an adult over the age of 21.
John, excuse me.
Yes.
Could you move to the microphone?
Oh, yes. So did you hear the last one? If what we will do, we'll let lockboxes happen, but we won't we won't have children in under 18, and we won't walk in on those buildings. We'll just walk away, and you guys need to know we're not going to do that. To answer your question, another step. I appreciated your thought. It is convoluted right now, and you get stuck, and you're going, oh, how come these are multiple different types of inspections? I want to let you know, though, if you feel that it was doubled and it shouldn't have been, the policy for you as a landlord has the right to call the city and go, hey, this looks like this is a repeat. And and that'll be in that checklist what you have the right to do. And you have the right to call for that complaint. The first place it's going to go, should go, is to that inspector going, why did you do this? Did you not check that there was already an inspection? They have the right to answer and clarify their own mistake. If not, you can go all the way up to me and ask me to look into it. That's called an appeal. And when I get it, I will address it personally to determine if we throw that out or not. So you have an action on your behalf to say, I don't think this is fair. And that goes first calling in, looking at the inspector. Then the inspection you don't get a satisfaction, it will be emailed to Ralph, he'll get an answer. If he can't give you a satisfaction, you get to appeal it all the way to me, and I'll answer it. And I will be the last answer on it. If you don't get it from me, you do have the right to go to the Court of Appeals, which is a selected group of men and women that is appointed by the mayor that sits on a board, but I haven't had that since I've been here. So those are your steps. You can go get that cleared up. My concern for you, though, is our technology should eliminate that issue for you, because I'm concerned that humans do make that mistake. There's two things that he didn't bring that I would bring to the table. That checklist should be mandated by everybody that follows it, so we're not looking at 3 and 4 different opinions of how we look at the house. I shouldn't look at your house because it's a rental one way, and 3 weeks later look at it differently because it's a resale. It should be looked at the same way. And if it was approved 3 weeks earlier as a rental on the exterior, it should be approved 3 weeks later as a resale. That should be our men's integrity, and it should be evaluated. And if the technology is doing what it's supposed to do, and we activate it and we honor it as men and women in the building department, it has the ability to, watch the phrase here, automate the system. In other words, when I go out to inspect, as soon as I'm done, it sends a checklist for me, the same guy, to follow up on that, on the exact number of days away that you should have responded. And if not, I have the ability, the same guy, to send you the notice that you haven't done anything. And then it has the ability to automate me to find out if you did it in the next set of days. I have the ability to have the program, software, control me, the inspector of your property, until I'm all the way done with it. And so it doesn't get lost in 3 different people. I have the ability, if we activate it in that software system. And that's what I hear you asking. Can we have the same, when somebody starts, can I have the same person go through the door? And I think we can, and we can systematically let the computer keep us in that checklist. And then Ralph's biggest job is to find out that when someone's absent, that they followed the responsible checklist instead of make up their own ideas. Does that help answer your question? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kasim Basha. We have a lot of property in Lincoln Park, and I'm really interested just in the technology aspect, like this gentleman was saying. First of all, I mean, I have seen a lot of improvement in the last probably 18 months to 1 year or what we can do online today. It's amazing. When we have multiple property, it would be nice if we can have some kind of group of property. An example, you know that the company is XYZ and they have 10 property. Maybe it would be nice to be able to get the status where we stand on those property, because this is my challenge every single week, trying to say which one I need to do. The scheduling of the multiple property also will be nice if you can do also online. So sometimes I have 4, 5, 6 inspections the same day, and I'm not sure which one we're going to do first. So that's another way we could solve by certainly online. And one more aspect, since we are in the technology, and I see a lot of things that are being done. Sometime when you have an inspection, and in example, the inspector will say replace 2 square on the driveway. Will be nice if you can add a picture to it. I mean, every inspector has a phone today. You could just take a quick picture, and then when we go online, we just simply click and say, oh, I know exactly what he's asking me to do. If not, I have to go back and ask the question, and then the lady, she doesn't know because she has to speak with the inspector. The inspector will come at 4 o'clock. So in more time. So if you want to have more efficiency, maybe that's use the technology at its best, and I think it's very cheap and easy to do. Okay?
Not only cheap, just to answer his question, our system has already been purchased.
Thank you.
That they can literally take the tablet that they now possess, they can take it apart, they can walk onto the property, they can open up your address as they're doing their checklist digitally, and then take every picture they feel they need to, and it automatically goes into that address for that category. So in other words, if it's a resale, it can go right under that resale registration. If it's a rental, it can go under that. If it's a vacant property, it can go under that. If it's a certificate of occupancy, it can go under that. And then you're right, when they call, and you can't get it yet online to see that picture, you can call the ladies. The ladies can open it up and they can see the attachment and see that picture and explain to you right on site. That technology is available to us to get ready and get started right now.
Margaret Shepard again. This is what you're using right now, correct?
Correct.
And all the inspectors should all know these codes, and all of them should equally be versed in these codes, correct?
They should.
Okay. That was one of the questions, though. Could they take a picture? Because when they put these conditions and violations, they don't all write the same thing.
I get
When
that.
I called about my inspection, I said, what does this mean? Where is this located at? The inspector talked to me because I don't know. I do a lot of inspections, so it couldn't tell me what I'm supposed to fix. So if they're going to be taking pictures, that answers my question.
And once we get this piece of the technology where you're actually able to go on to the website and see the report on your address, you'll be able to see the photos as well. And that's coming along as well. And I think there's even the technology right now to send those photos to you if you call. The admin clerk could send them in a JPEG. I don't know about this, and then she'll look at it, she goes, oh, the picture's right here, I'll send it to you, you know. So you're right, and these are the kind of things because these are like silly problems, you know, these are problems that shouldn't be happening. And it's nothing that we're gonna argue with you over and say, no, if you can't figure it out, you know, I mean, we want that to work for you, and so, you know, we're going to try to blaze through all this kind of stuff and make this more standard.
Good evening. I'm Lorenzo Buendo. I got a couple questions. I don't want to burn any bridges here. I was in yesterday. I spoke with John. One suggestion would be if they could cite the codes, you know, to like the violations. If they could look through the code book and cite the code there on the paperwork. This way the inspector can maybe look through it in case maybe it'll reflect it. He might be incorrect, you know, with his violation.
Don't these already have all the codes on them?
Yes, sir.
So that the rental check sheet has all the IPMC codes on it. Property maintenance, they have the code sections, and the code is available on our website.
Well, next to like where they, you know, put CO detector, if they could maybe
Oh, I see, just
You
to
know,
get
if
more
they could maybe
clarification.
put that, or if
Sure.
one of the issues was the dryer vent, if they could, you know, specify the code exactly so we could refer to the
I
book.
don't know why they can't.
That way. Yeah, I think that's it.
Mr. Lorenzo, now that you've earned your bridge, I'm just kidding.
I didn't elaborate, but there's a few people I'd appreciate.
Hey, listen, if our inspectors are doing as they're trained, and now the technology is in hand to you to see it, and they have that exact print in their computer, when you're asking about a dryer vent material, the first thing you should actually see on your violation is code 602.2, excuse me, 403.5, dryer, closed dryer ventilation exhaust system should have, and then it gives you the description. If they want to tell you you have two of them and they want you to correct one part of it on the second set, they have the ability to give you the detail. But the code is now in place, it's in writing, and the code number's there, so that if you want to verify it, you can go online to the website, pull of it.
Not on the paperwork. that
No,
you
no,
put out,
no,
right?
it should be on their paperwork from this day forward.
Not from 2 days ago, though?
Yeah, it should have been.
It should have been.
It should have been?
That's what, when,
even yesterday,
wait a
it
second.
wasn't on.
When he gets to his team and goes, hey, team, if there's a checklist with a number and you're not using that, that's between him and his team.
No, that's when I burned bridges.
That's when he
I think
burns
there were
bridges.
2 items on there that I talked with John yesterday, and I think I'm actually lead-based certified, I'm a builder, so I know the things, and I've gone to the state level, and, you know, I don't wanna fight with them, but I let them do what they say, and then I verify it later.
So
That's the best way to do that.
they're coded, they're written in code, and they are in the computer for code, so they do have the ability to find it on the code sheet, type it a failure, and then write an edification of where it's at.
Be on there.
All right?
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Linda. I have a 6-unit
And then you're gonna
building.
have to give them your last name.
Oh, Linda Kalash. I've had a 6-unit building for over 20 years. Anyway, they've talked about the 4-hour window and trying to narrow it down. And it's a real big importance of me because for 20-plus years, because I've had properties for 28 years in your city, my tenants, half of them are not there during inspection. The other half won't let the inspector in unless I'm physically there. I don't live at the property, never have. So I'm wondering, because I know that John had mentioned to call between 8 and 8:30 to find out when someone might show up. That's a great idea, but for me, I live like 30 minutes from the property, and if I have this window between 8 and noon, I leave my property at 7:30, get there at 8, I'm going to be waiting there for 4 hours in the parking lot, right? I'm wondering if somehow it can be narrowed down to maybe 2 hours rather than 4 hours, because sitting in the parking lot for 4 hours for someone to show up at 1 minute to noon, you know what I'm saying? And I might have to run to McDonald's to use the restroom, and I'll miss the inspector, and then that person's going to get put out, right? And then I'm going to be like, oh, gee, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just wondering how this can be more effective for
Yeah.
people like in my situation.
So, we're trying to work it so that if you call in the morning, you're getting within 20 minutes to a half hour lead time. You know, so if you need more than that to get there, they should be able to make, to accommodate you. If you call and say, if you call at 8 o'clock and say, I can be there sometime between 10 and noon, when did you think you were gonna be there? They should be able to tell you, I'll be there at 10:30, I'll be there at 11.
Right, because that was not my experience for 27 years, right?
Yeah.
Well,
So that's what I'm just asking.
We want the new generation to be better than that.
Yeah, so I'm just, it's a big deal.
I was actually working somewhere else 27 years ago.
To clarify again, the why to call between 8 and 8:30 is because our request is that our rental inspectors are in our building between 8 and 8:30. 8:30 and 9. Before they leave the building, we want them to be available for any yesterday's concerns from you people to call them and go, we need to talk to them because they don't have, for example, my phone is a business phone from the city. So you can call it any time and you do. Weekends, nights, midnights, you guys call. Thanks a lot. But we don't give their numbers out, so that we have to call them and they're on the road from our office if they have a change of need. But if you call between 8 in the morning when they arrive and before they leave for their first inspection, you don't have to talk to the ladies. You can say, hey, Joe, we need you to tell this lady when you think you can get to her office or her building apartment complex today. You're scheduled for the morning between 9 and noon. When do you think you will commit to being there? Because it's the first call he gets to answer you. He tells you he'll be there at 9:30. You can count on that. That's the standard we're setting in motion. But that's why we want them there in the morning. And so the idea will be technology, we can even tighten that up. But at this point, we don't want to give them 2 hours. The other thing we think will change this dynamic, and this happens in a lot of cities, where a rental inspector will also be a plumber or a mechanical or a building inspector. So they have 8 inspections for rental, but they have 12 other concrete poured inspections to look at. And so they put them in between all their other inspections and they lose their schedule. If we know we've given the city a inspector who just does rental, then he doesn't get lost in having to go look at an open roof at this time and lose 30 minutes and then miss you in your window of time. We think that's honorable to what you guys need to get liable, responsible attendance to your needs. So we're trying to address that as we move forward. Does that help? All right, is there any other questions?
Could one of you run the microphone to him?
I just have a really bad back problem today. My name is Alex Juhas, and I appreciate John's spirit. He's a nice man. If you talk to him, he'd sit down with you and listen to you. I have an issue. I don't know if how that can be resolved. Like every 3 years, we have a re-inspection, and when they do, a lot of time they're looking for the sidewalk or concrete work, and I just had this year a couple of them redone that need to be replaced, even if just has a crack. It's no lifting or anything. The other thing is, if they do, like how is the Michigan weather is the freezing temperature, lifting them up each year and not going back how supposed to be, or we have a city tree between the sidewalk and the road. Sometimes that issue. How we handle that, because like I had last year one of the sidewalk replaced, which one cost me $35, and I pulled a permit $145. Now I just saw this winter again lifted up other one. Now they come out and I have to pull other $145, and the concrete just cost me $35. So this way, I don't know if the same permit can be used 2 times or how we handle this.
It's a good question, and it needs to be brought to the great question, because you're really asking, can I overlap, because I know it's going to happen periodically. That'll have to be decided by a city ordinance, and that'll have to be presented as a resolution to the city council and mayor, and they'll have to make that decision on an economic and a practical basis on their side. They make the laws, we just try to enforce them. The second category to your subject, though, and it might help us in the future, because and there may be a number of you who've been here already that have questioned some of the calls on concrete. And if it gets to me as an appeal, I'll be more than willing to go out and take a look. And I have turned over many of them, because a crack doesn't qualify as a trip hazard. Sometimes if there is a sidewalk and it's cracked, so there's 3 separate pieces, now according to the ordinance written in 2005 in this city, that counts as a trip hazard violation. So when you get your when you get your registration from now on, you should be able to get that registration, you should get that list, you should be able to get the list of things that you know you have to do for yourself to be in compliance and how you get to follow the trail. And then because of this is a unique thing in our city and we want to take care of life and safety of public service ways, that's your sidewalks, we will submit with that list the city ordinance for what is the standard for a trip hazard in the city of Lincoln Park. And it'll tell you what you can do, what you can't do, how high, how wide, and how tall. So if it's cracked, if it has aggregate surface and water can sit in it and turn to ice, that would be a trip hazard because you wouldn't see that water turn to ice. You'd slip, fall, and get hurt. And that's where the city gets. So there's a list written in the ordinance in 2005 that will go with that list so you'll know. And when you go, why did they mark that crack? And don't get me wrong, there have been inspectors in other cities and other places and other times, maybe even in here, who said, I see it's cracked, it's going to rise someday, so let's just take care of it today. But landlords may not be prepared to take another $2,000 bill paycheck to take that piece of crack out until it does become trip hazard. And we need to be sensitive to that. And we need to follow the ordinance that the city wrote and tell you that's the guideline. By the way, at the same point, when the city ordinance doesn't tell you you can skim coat it, we're not going to let you keep the skim coat. It's the cheapest way, but the city ordinance doesn't grant you that right, so we're not going to grant you the permission to do so. But that should go in that packet for you, so you now know what is the trip hazard rules and standards for the city of Lincoln Park from this day forward. All right?
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You're trying to get where the inspectors you have are all across the board for rental inspectors for the rentals? Is that what you were saying?
That's the recommendation, and that'll be with Mckenna feels they can accomplish that sometime in the future.
Because this was the concern that we had is depending on what inspector we got, if they dealt with cement, they hit all the cement. If they dealt with electrical, they knocked you up on everything in electrical. And we thought if it was across the board the same and you knew the inspector that was going to be coming was all going to be, everybody was going to be looking at all the same items, you knew what you were looking at. So that was just one of the concerns I had.
Appreciate the concern, and Ralph and I need to hear that because our responsibility and Ralph's responsibility to his team is to go, you don't get to have your specialty as a highlight to your inspection. It's still just a rental, and you need to follow the rules and ordinances of our city. And so that'll be his to manage and develop his men and women to do that properly so that it doesn't become a favorite of, oh, I know concrete, so I know it's good. You're just supposed to do your job according to the code and the ordinance and be grateful for that. We've agreed, when I came on again, remember this, and it's hard to keep it all from your side, but from my side, when I was invited by the mayor, council, and management to be the building official, we agreed that the first couple of years, 3 years is the cycle, we would address life safety. The city's gone through a lot of ups and downs economically, and so we just need to get the city first at safe, healthy enough to survive, and then we can worry about what comes next. But let's just get the first 3 years into getting you guys knowing that you have a safe place for your people to live in, and the people that are coming to live in your town and in your buildings know they don't have an issue of health and safety. And so that's what we're trying to address.
Chris Darzinski, resident Lincoln Park. My apologies, I should have jumped in 15 minutes earlier to be cohesive on this. So let's marry up liability with the process. 2 months ago at a council meeting, you said you had the 3 Surface Pros. Those are in the field? Not completely yet, but getting there.
They're active.
They're active, okay. So because I figure they rotate. I mean, not everybody in the field is going to have a Surface Pro.
No, everybody that's in the field on a 5-day week basis has access to take a Surface Pro with them.
But if they don't, then they should be taking something else to document what they're doing.
You're right. At this point, if they don't take one, they do it old school. They take it on paper, and they come back and they put it in by hand.
Okay. Obviously, I have a very unique perspective on this right now. And this is something you're not aware of, maybe at the level that I am aware of it at. And this was 4 separate landlords, six separate complaints. well, 6 separate documentations on this, of inspectors showing up with no paperwork. That's a concern, because that's liability, because things are not properly documented and, at all. You might not notice, but I work in international trade. Let me tell you, we have to document everything because we answer to the federal government. So I have a big concern about that. As far as liability, it has to get down to benchmarks. I mean, a week from today, Ralph should be in your office with, okay, at this 90-day point, there's going to be consistent Surface Pros in the out in the field. And if there's no Surface Pro, then everybody's showing up with a clipboard, a checklist, and ready to rock and roll with their multimeters, so forth and so on. I don't think that concern has been met completely. And of course, the state certifies, the state has to certify an inspector and guidelines and all that. So I reached out to Cara Clemente's office regarding that. So I'll have more research on that. But there has to be benchmarks. 90 days from now, everybody in the field has a clipboard or a Surface Pro, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Just to clarify a couple of things there, I don't know of any, and you may, and you should bring them to our attention. That helps us do a better job at evaluating the performance of our inspectors. But right now, we do have the tools for them to use. Right now, we have the ability for them to take a checklist that they already know and then come back. That would be Ralph's to take care of as he sees that concern from someone that can verify that's happening. He can handle that. He's already demonstrated that he's released 4 people from our city that were inspectors that did not comply with the things he was asking for them to do, that the city management and the city building department was asking him to do. He's already removed that. So you know that he has the ability to go, if that's really becoming a repetitive problem, we'll solve that in-house. Number 2, you do need to know, if you're not aware, that the state law does not require any city to hire a licensed, registered state inspector to be a rental inspector. You do need to know that. So don't be deceived, don't be fooled. They can be trained, they can be developed, but the law doesn't say I have to have the same standard of licensing to be a building inspector or a plumbing inspector as I do a rental inspector. Doesn't mean they don't need the same level of training and commitment from Mckenna or from me to do the job well and follow the code. So I can tell you Mckenna's looking for people that either have building experience, construction experience, some form of awareness of buildings design experience, architectural builders, so one of those categories. But before you're not aware of it, the law does not mandate us to hire a rental inspector to be licensed as a state certified building inspector.
That's correct. They don't have a certification for rentals. ICC does, and so we're working to get all of our inspectors certified with that. But at the same time, all of our inspectors are certified in at least one Act 407 discipline, which can be a bane to you, but it can also be for one thing, they can inspect certain permits while they're out there to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And so it's up to me to get them to the point that they're not trying to treat, just because they're an electrician, they're not going to show off and play games with your electricity and everything. Or, I mean, our mechanical guy has actually, I think, probably saved some lives in some of the things he's seen and brought to my attention in the city so far. Things like release pressure things on water heaters pressed right up against the wall, so they would never go off. That water heater would shoot through the roof before it would go off, because that's the way somebody put it in. And so we catch that, and that's a good thing. And he's also a guy who's very good at not making a big deal out of the fact that he's a mechanical inspector, and so he's very good at that. And so in most of our cities, and I think actually we've talked about this with Matt, we want a certification of some sort for anybody that we're using to do rental inspections. And so maybe the other thing we can touch on, because somebody touched a little bit about the cost of concrete. It was you. And the cost of the permit. And we are we're probably going to look at the fee schedules this coming year, and we're very cognizant of that problem. And the code requires that certain things be permitted, whether we like it or not. But the fee going along with the rental fees you've already paid and everything else, it can be pretty prohibitive, cost prohibitive. And so we've tossed around the idea, which once again is going to have to go through John and the council, of somehow lowering a trade fee if it's connected to a rental property. In other words, if you're already in the process of a rental inspection and you need to pull an electrical permit to put a bunch of GFIs in, I don't want somebody sneaking them in who doesn't know what they're doing, and so people think that they're protected and they're not. We'd rather see them inspected properly. But we can understand why you don't want to spend $200 to do it. And so we're trying, that's an issue on our mind, and we're trying to figure out a way to do that and still be not accused by contractors of catering to rental program and not other field inspections. I mean, it's a tricky way to have to go through all this, but we're working really hard to do it right. And believe me, I'm cognizant of it. I have to hire contractors in my building when I can do all that stuff. And I pay them, and I pay the cost. It's just what it is. But I understand not wanting to have to do that, and we're going to try to do something about that.
Matt Cole, so follow up to that comment. I like where you're going. Another suggestion might be, since sounds like it's 50% rental properties in the city, and concrete is a very expensive fix. The other challenge with landlords is to find a hired contractor to do 1 or 2 squares in a timely fashion. Nobody wants to come out for that. An idea, suggestion, challenge to the committee might be every year, once a quarter, you somehow work with the landlord community who needs concrete done, farm it out to our favorite contractor or whoever wins the bid. And I know you're going to say, well, who's going to pony up the cash if the landlord doesn't pay? You guys have means to put liens on properties, citations, whatever it may be for taxes, but that might be a good way to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
And that's a good idea. I appreciate that.
And our board has that.
Yes, we did. I was in Ann Arbor. Yeah.
I had that issue, sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, charge me $500 for 1 little square.
Sure. All right. There's a couple of things I want to wrap up if there's nothing else anybody has at this point on these subjects, because I know you've been patient. I'm so glad you're here. You don't understand what value you bring to helping us be better at what we do. I, as the building official for the city of Lincoln Park, believe you bring that. I know there's some who haven't said anything that I've met with, and you have some really great ideas that we should entertain that can even stimulate this process being more effective, being more available to helping us find property that's not being registered, not so that we can pin them down to the wall, but so that we can make a safer and healthier and more valued neighborhood. That's still coming. But I have several things I want to close with, just so that the council gets an idea of it, you can get an idea, maybe it will excite you. I hope it does. It excites me. Number one, we've talked about going technical and digital, and we've created in the building department a tell me how we're doing card. And it'll be in the city hall, it'll be up in the manager's office as well as the building department. On the back, it has one of those weird little square things on it. People that are smart know what to do with it. They click it on their phone and it shows up something. But the front side is an email address, and you can open that email address, and there'll be a questionnaire to tell us what you think we've done. Good or bad. You could be mad that day when you write it. That's fine. I don't mind. But if we get as many views as we can have a targeting market of what's missing. And it's not the outline that maybe we'll stay with. We might want to refine it. But it'll tell you, hey, I'm a contractor, I'm a builder, I'm a landlord, I'm a this, I'm that. And now I'm telling you where I'm at, and I'm telling you what I had a problem. Or I really think that Maserat did a super job solving my problem for me. And John really cuts his hair really nice, and I'm really excited about it. Whatever you want to write in it, it's there. It has direct questions. Give us a review as often as it need to be. And anybody else comes in, we hope they tell us how we're doing. That'll tell us what we need to change, what we need to fix, and then what we need to keep the same as we're doing. So that's going to the market. That's I believe, according to James today, that's active as of tonight. And it's available for anybody to open up and look on our website and do that review on our behalf. This is one that I didn't get. I know I meant to speak with the mayor earlier, but my recommendation for the council in the future, in the near future, is to suggest that in our city we have many different types of committees. We have appointed committees and boards for planning commission, as some of you have been involved in, or zoning boards, or code enforcement appeals. All of those are appointed positions. I'd like to recommend that we consider, as a mayor and a council, that we put a landlord committee together, and we meet quarterly, and we put a group of people together appointed by the mayor that says our job will be to listen to this on the street, bring it to the building department, and take a look at how we can continue to improve with your voice in the middle of the ideas. But you need to know that we have about 5 different types of landlords in our city, and all 5 of those will need to be represented, in my opinion. And they go from people that just have 1 or 2 houses. They used to be their moms and dads, and now they never sold it, and they're trying to make a few dollars on it. It's valuable. Then we have the people that really have lived here for a long time, and they had some extra resources, and the finances went down, so they bought 3 to 5, 7 houses, and now they're trying to maintain them and keep them for some other people. Now we have management companies, and we have 2 types of management companies. We have management companies that buy houses and then manage those houses. They own them and they manage them. We have companies that manage other people's houses. The people don't live in the state, they don't live in the country, but they own the property. They contract to be the manager within the city ordinance of 100 feet, 100 miles of the property as a responsible agent. We have all different types of landlords in our city. And the newest one we have are those who are trying to create contracts that are land contracts that really aren't actual the proper type of contract. So we have 5 different styles of landlords. We need to represent them. Some that have large properties. Some landlords actually don't have a residential property that is single. They have multiple unit families. They have 6 units. They have 25 units that have 8 units, 8 residents in each of the buildings, all over the place. We need all their voices to hear the views that's going on. I'd like to recommend that the mayor and the city council consider appointing that committee so that we stay on top of building the responsible party of the building department in a rental issue and get better ideas every quarter. I'd be willing, as the building official, to commit to creating that agenda and submitting the minutes after those meetings and keep them accurate and efficient so we can go forward. So those are the 2 things I'd like to close with. We do have an application.
John, I think you'd be more efficient just scheduling a meeting for quarterly and then doing that. You don't have, because you'll have different people coming in at different times, as opposed to that when they have issues. And just have an open forum that you could take minutes for. I don't think it needs to be an official
Excellent.
committee, though.
I think that would be a benefit to you people to have a voice, and it would help us take a look at how we can better improve all the technology and all the efficiency.
Take a certain date that they know it's going to be at the beginning of the quarter, and then reserve the council chambers for it.
And make it more like a workshop.
Yes.
Very good. That's a great idea.
Margaret Shepherd again. Mine is just, I think that you would have more people here and more people speaking. I'm on Facebook. Everybody's probably on Facebook. And a lot of the concerns they saw was people were afraid to come in and bring their concerns because they were afraid of repercussions of when they do have their rental inspections. And I think as they hear what we've talked about here and people that have been here, and let them know what your guys' opinions are, how you guys came across with this, I think you'll have more people coming in and wanting to bring their concerns to you and be more active in this program.
Thank you. I believe we have thousands of residential properties that are rentals, and I think we have hundreds of landlords. And we need to figure out how we can best serve all of you to make one thing possible, a healthier, safer city of Lincoln Park for everybody, for those who own and those who rent. Thank you, sir.
Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? At this point, then, we will close the study session at 8 o'clock. Thank you all for coming.
Don't leave, Meyer. Hey, Meyer. John.